You're watching News Channel 5, where the news comes first.
Breaking news, police fired tear gas on protesters in Ferguson. A day that began with promise of peace ends with another showdown on the streets, and 2 members of the national media arrested. Good evening. The chaotic scene is still playing out right now in the middle of West Florissant Avenue in Ferguson.
Let's get right to News Channel 5's Christina Coleman. She ducked for cover as tear gas filled the air. Christina?
Right, I was ducking for cover because of the tear gas, and just moments ago, police were telling us to duck behind our news vehicle because they weren't sure what was happening at an apartment complex nearby. I'm looking at them right now. They're trying to direct traffic. They have been shouting at people to go the other way, turn around. They're like, man, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for your safety, so we're keeping an eye on that. But, you know, police were trying to clear out the street near the burnt-out Quick Trip, asking the crowd to disperse peacefully, but many of them got back onto the street. They got back onto West Florissant over time, and shortly before 9 o'clock, that tear gas was thrown multiple times. I wasn't sure what prompted it. Some say someone threw a bottle or some sort of object at police. Now, we haven't confirmed that. All I know is that everyone took off sprinting, including me and my photographer. Another journalist jumped into our car. I mean, our faces were burning, our eyes were watering. We weren't sure what was going on. And so that has been taking place. It was just this cloud of gas in the air. That's all you saw. And then armed officers walking around. It felt like you were in a war zone. You just heard this popping over and over, and the police asking everyone to stay 25 feet away from their vehicles. You had, you know, one news photographer out here with a gas mask himself. He was in the thick of it. We were just trying to stay safe and report on what was going on. But a lot of protesters, they came back out here. They came back onto the streets once that gas cleared the air, and they continue to stand there. Now, I can't see them any longer because it looks like police have got them to go farther down West Florissant by throwing that tear gas. But I can tell you that, you know, there was some concern that there were some protesters or maybe just people just coming out here to look at what was going on in the woods out here. So they're looking for people standing in the bushes, and that's what's happening now. We're going to keep monitoring this. Mike and Ann?
Christina, give me an idea of the size of the crowd tonight compared to the last couple of nights that you've been there.
Well, the size of the crowd was actually smaller. I mean, yesterday it seemed like there were hundreds of people. This crowd seemed smaller, but it just seemed more intense. I mean, they were like right in the faces of the police officers. Some of them were yelling, some of them were cursing. There were pastors who were trying to get people to step back. And, you know, it just seemed like everything happened a lot earlier. You know, the other 2 evenings, it was like sundown, but, you know, it was not even 6 o'clock, I don't think, before the barricades came out here and the police weren't letting anyone go by. I mean, it was daylight. And so, I mean, that just gives you an idea of how long people have been out here. And keep in mind, between these barricades on West Florissant, there's these restaurants, the Quick Trip is burned down. There's not much for people to get to or do around here, but they continue to sit out here for hours, protesting, demanding justice. Meantime, you have the officers urging people to leave, to go down the street, go away. And it really wasn't until that tear gas was thrown shortly before 9 o'clock that you could see that crowd dispersing. I can't tell you exactly what happened. I went down to talk to some residents, and I just saw this cloud of smoke surrounding our car, and I was running. I was booking it. It was like something out of a movie. I was trying to get to the car before the gas got there, and it was just a scary situation for a lot of people.
Christina, we see a lot of homes around you, and I've seen on Twitter that residents in Ferguson have opened their doors, gone out on their front porches, and invited people in to escape the tear gas, much like you were trying to run to the car. Have you seen that at all? Just random people saying, hey, come into my home. You can come in here and be safe from the gas.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I was at that apartment complex, and there were people that just, it seemed like there was a lot of people, almost for the first time that they were meeting in this community, just being out here and seeing what was going on. And when that gas filled the air, I mean, they were just running for it. People were trying to get where we could. Like I said, we had a journalist in the car, and it looked like we were crying together. Both of our eyes were just, you know, watering. And, you know, you haven't, I've never been through something like that. I'm sure he hasn't either. And that goes for a lot of the people out here. I spoke with one woman. She catches the bus. She goes through this area. area every day. She said, you know, I have to get off work early. I'm losing money. I can't afford to pay some of my bills because I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and here I am having to leave work early because I'm afraid I might get tear gassed, you know. And so it's been really tough, and these neighbors are staying strong and trying to stick together. Some of them who want to see, you know, some kind of peaceful resolution out of all of this. And, you know, it's just been tough. And it was, you know, round after round of this tear gas. It wasn't just, you know, once or twice. I mean, I don't know. It might happen again.
All right, and Christina, you stay safe, and we'll get back to you as developments warrant. Also breaking tonight, 2 reporters in town covering the chaos in Ferguson are now part of the story. Wesley Lowry of the Washington Post and Ryan J. Riley of the Huffington Post were arrested tonight. The journalists say they were inside a McDonald's when police claim they were trespassing. Riley told me one of the county officers became physical and assaulted him.
I was turned around. A finger was jabbed into my neck. My arms were moved in a very, you know, uncomfortable and painful position, and I was cuffed. The officer then proceeded to stuff everything into my bag and then walk me in handcuffs or in wristbands or whatever, zip ties, out of the McDonald's, at which point he banged my head on purpose against the glass of the McDonald's door, and then sarcastically said that he was sorry.
The reporters say they were detained, booked, and then released without being charged. We reached out to county police tonight for their response and have yet to hear back.
Just before the situation in Ferguson started to turn tense, the St. Louis County Police Chief praised the restraint officers have shown over the past 4 days. News Channel 5's Casey Nolan talked to Chief John Belmar about the situation that is unprecedented for St. Louis.
Yeah, and in fact, the chief says in his 28 years in law enforcement, he has never seen anything like this, and he has never even heard of anything like this in the St. Louis region. The chief says he's had about 24 cars, police cars, damaged here in Ferguson, and tens of thousands of damage done to those cars. And he says he's seen and heard dozens upon dozens of gunshots in the neighborhoods around the areas where the protesters are gathering. That's, again, all according to the chief. He says he is actually, quote, amazed and inspired by the level of restraint his officers had shown. Protesters argue their rights to assemble. Well, they say those rights are under attack. The chief says there are, quote, great people who deserve a great community living here in Ferguson, and he says it's his responsibility to make sure they are safe. Actually, earlier this morning around 1 a.m., an officer shot a man that the chief says pointed a gun at the officer, and he says, the chief does, that he's surprised it hadn't happened sooner.
I have been in fear ever since Saturday afternoon for something like what happened last night at Chambers and Sheffendale would happen. I thought it was remarkable that it hadn't happened sooner, to be honest with you, with the amount of gunfire that we experienced in the area.
And we asked the chief, what about a curfew? He says the people that are, in his words, causing the problems wouldn't obey a curfew anyway, and it would actually just make life harder on those people that you heard Christina talking about trying to get to and from work. He said people trying to catch the bus or drive in and out of town would just be under that much more inconvenience if they put in a curfew. We'll also ask him if there was any talk of the National Guard. He says he has been in contact with the governor's office about that. He says there are some benefits, in the chief's words, to having the National Guard here, but he says there are some management issues with that many people that he isn't quite sure whether it's worth it or not. I can tell you, Mike and Ann, they thought here at this command post, just about a quarter mile or so from where Christina is, they thought last night that would be about it. They thought it was winding down until around 11:30 when things kicked up again last night. And now he is not sure how long this activity might last. Mike and Ann?
The Department of Justice is opening a civil rights investigation into the shooting death of Michael Brown. The agency's case will be separate from the one being conducted by St. Louis County. Today, prosecuting attorney Bob McCullough said there is no timetable to complete this case, but he promised all of the evidence will be made public.
It is highly likely that it will take more than one session of a grand jury to present all this information. So it is highly unlikely. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks.
2 more pieces of information we learned from county prosecutors. They're still planning to interview the eyewitness who was with Brown on the day of the shooting. And prosecutors confirm Brown did not have a previous criminal record.
The attorney for Michael Brown's family confirms the teen's body has been released to his parents. Right now, it's at an undisclosed funeral home. The family is working to hire a professional to perform a second autopsy. Meanwhile, there's an expanded effort to help improve race relations in the Ferguson community. The city's police chief says he's reached out to federal officials for help and advice. Chief Tom Jackson says he understands the community's anger and knows there's a lot of healing ahead.
There's been this undertow that now has bubbled to the surface, and it's our first priority to address it, to fix what's wrong.
The chief has also requested that people not protest after dark. Obviously, some people didn't honor that request.
It's been a tense night throughout Ferguson, as our Elizabeth Matthews found out firsthand. She just had to move locations. Liz, what's happened in the last few minutes?
That's right, guys. So just to be completely transparent about this, I was sitting in the car working on a story for tonight's 10 o'clock. I have two photographers, two photojournalists out here with me, when all of a sudden I heard what kind of sounded like fireworks going off in the street. I look back and I see, if we can take this video, it is amazing video. It is dealing with Al Jazeera, which is a group here trying to document what's going on. If you can check out this video, there is a tear gas canister being shot right at their car. It gets very close to their car, very close to their equipment. They were about to do a live shot just like we were. We were setting up in that exact same neighborhood. Obviously, we're filming this, getting ready to do live shots, and they had to take off running. Their equipment, they had to leave it there, and they had to take off running. We were surprised when about 25, 30 officers rounded the corner, suited up in tactical gear, guns raised, pointed at us, near us, and we were kind of fearing. I even at one point, sitting in the car, even kind of put my hands up in the air going, I don't know what's going on. I'm just sitting here trying to write a script. And they actually told my photojournalists that they are here to try to get us out. They told the print journalists who were just there with their still cameras that they need to put their cameras down. They need to get out of that area. We were just sitting in a residential area. There were zero crowds around us. We didn't see any protesting, any marching. We were in that neighborhood talking about how the school district is not going to start tomorrow, the Ferguson-Florissant School District, and it was frightening.
Elizabeth, stay safe. Thank you for that report. And let's take another look at what happened on the streets of Ferguson. Those tear gas canisters going off, reports of heavy gas. Team coverage continues, including a special commentary from our Art Holiday. Stay with us. Our live team coverage of the fourth night of protests in Ferguson continues.
Let's go back out to Christina Coleman in Ferguson. Christina.
Well, right now we are surrounded by the St. Louis County Police. They are here on the end of the street. They are, we just heard another pop there. Imagining that's probably more tear gas. Hopefully that's not near us because it's very tough to take. But I mean, they are telling people to turn around. They're running, and they are all taking cover. They're ducking, and they're yelling at me to get in the car. So I'm going to get in the car right now, and I am getting into the car, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on. We're just watching. They are retreating. The police are actually retreating. They're backing up, so something must be coming towards them. I'm not sure what. My photographer is telling me they heard gunfire, so I'm not sure what direction that is coming from, but they are continuing to retreat. They have one of their big tactical trucks that they are all surrounding right now. They're getting around it, and they're facing forward, and it looks like several dozen officers are right to the left, literally feet away from our vehicle, and they're all getting behind what looks like cement boulders. They're all just preparing, like they're all just like stationing there. And so we're all just in the car, kind of tucked away, waiting to see what is approaching them since they have been retreating. I would like to get out of the car and tell you what's going on, but they have yelled at me to get in just moments ago. And so I'm not sure exactly what they are waiting for. Okay, it looks like a car is pulling up right now. A car is pulling up, and it's turning around, and apparently that was the car that was going towards the police
Christina, we want you to
officer.
just be safe, so we're going to cut you off.
Christina, yeah, get out of that area right now. We do not want any situations where a reporter gets hurt. You've already had to experience tear gas tonight. Just leave the area right now if there's any danger whatsoever. And so this whole situation began with a peaceful protest, but we've had reports that some of the protesters late in the day started throwing rocks, perhaps Molotov cocktails. That's not confirmed, but we've been told that. And so the police tonight are taking a very aggressive stance, kind of like they have the last couple of nights with the tear gas.
Fourth night in a row for this. Now, what's next for the region, especially in North County, in the wake of the police shooting that killed Michael Brown?
Here's News Channel 5's Art Holiday.
It's been a turbulent 5 days. Demonstrations, confrontations, looting, and vandalism. And there's been a second police shooting. A St. Louis County police officer critically wounding a man who police say pointed a gun at him early Wednesday. Long term, many of us are wondering, what's next? How do Ferguson and nearby communities recover, and what will it take? The facts as we know them. 18-year-old Michael Brown was unarmed when an unnamed Ferguson police officer fatally shot him. Witnesses say Brown was surrendering with his hands up. Many questions remain because answers are few and far between, at a time when transparency from those investigating might inform the public and lessen distrust. While Michael Brown's family grieves, while local and federal investigators sort out what happened, Ferguson and surrounding communities are teetering from days of violence.
Gunshots.
Cooler heads are not prevailing.
Don't shoot! Hands up!
To the lawful protesters who want to fight the power, if your goal is meaningful change, then by all means, use your anger as fuel to make things better. But to those who loot and burn and shoot and senselessly destroy the businesses of people who had nothing to do with Brown's death, you're making things worse. Hashtag, please stop. As the protests and tense confrontations continue,
They sicken the dogs on us.
with SWAT teams and police dogs as a show of force, we're left to wonder about the what next after the tears and tear gas fade away. 5 tumultuous days in August will transform Ferguson in one way or another. The mayor says the reason Ferguson has only 3 black policemen out of 53 is that not enough young African Americans want to be cops. How do we convince more black men and women to become police officers or run for public office in cities like Ferguson, whose officials are mostly white, while the community is 2/3 African American? Is the black community willing to do its part to stem the plague of black-on-black crime? Spray painting snitches get stitches won't get the job done. But this incident is a crossroads for Ferguson and the region, and an opportunity to address critical issues decades in the making. Will we seize the day? If we don't, Michael Brown's death, already tragic, will be in vain. These are complex issues that have been raised in Ferguson. Quick fixes and easy answers are unlikely. Art Holiday, News Channel 5.
Our web team has put together an interactive timeline of the Michael Brown shooting. It starts on Saturday at noon and documents every single development along the way. You can access this direct link at ksdk.com/Michael Brown timeline.
There were press conferences earlier today from both Police Chief Tom Jackson of Ferguson and St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmar, hoping for calm tonight and that cooler heads would prevail. That clearly has not been the case in Ferguson tonight. We do want to remind you that due to safety concerns, the Ferguson-Florissant School District has canceled the first day of classes for tomorrow. They've moved it to Monday. That affects about 11,000 students in the area, but you can see why they fear for the safety of these kids.
And we've had many tear gas canisters fired off, police saying rocks and bottles were thrown at them.
And if you were with us a little earlier in this newscast, you saw our own Christina Coleman having to get inside a car because there was some fear that there was somebody with guns coming toward police. She was surrounded by police. They told her to get down, get in her car. While she was live on the air, we told her to get out of harm's way. So we are trying to reestablish a connection with her. We do understand she is okay, so that's the good news. But we really have a difficult situation there in Ferguson tonight for media members, for residents, and for police as well.
And so many developments today as well. Michael Brown's body was released to his parents today, and they are expecting to do their own independent autopsy. And then also today, we got word that the reason that they have not released more information, the police, about the details of the autopsy is that they want to interview more witnesses. And they don't want anything influencing those witnesses' reports, so they are holding back those details for now. But they're saying at least several weeks before they're going to have all this information, this investigation done.